It's a great pleasure and a privilege to be here on this, the 30th anniversary of the running of the great race here at Mount Panorama Circuit in Bathurst, and the dawning of a new era in Australian motorsport. Now I know the whole of Australia's waiting, not to mention some several million viewers from around the world. So without further ado, it's time to commence the running of the 1992 Tooheys 1000. Gentlemen, start your engines!
And as the starting command is given, those V8s and Nissans and BMWs explode into life here on the starting grid at Mount Panorama. As you can see, the weather is starting to close in. There being talk all day, a 30% chance of rain. I think that's blown out in the market. It is certainly looking very much like rain within an hour or so, but we have the competitors forming up. Dickie Johnson and Larry Perkins on the front row of the grid. Larry, of course, the winner of the Sandown 500 recently. Dickie Johnson blitzing them in qualifying yesterday in the Shell Sierra, taking pole position, and right behind the mark Skaife, the defending champion, along with Jimmy Richards, and the new EB Ford Falcon, the Peter Jackson car, off position number 4. As I mentioned earlier, a tremendous crowd here at Mount Panorama for this fabulous sporting contest. We're not too far away from the start. 16 is, of course, the Holden Racing Team Commodore, Win Percy, Alan Grice. Sharing that car today, Peter Brock, of course, in the Mobile Commodore number 05. We are 10 seconds away from the start of one of the really great sporting spectacles of Australia, the Tooheys 1000. Engines come up to revs and they get off the line. Seaton makes and muffs the start, and it's Johnson up on the inside of Perkins with Mark Skaife looking for it, but he'll drop back one spot. 05 is stalled on the starting grid, Peter Brock. And Brock sitting there as the rest of the field goes through the first turn and works their way now up Mountain Straight. Dick Johnson away to a brilliant start. And there's the second of the Johnson cars back in car number 18 as Johnson starts to stretch it. Mark Skaife gets up very, very smartly indeed. Follows up. Mark Gibbs also away to a great start, the first of the Commodores, and Seaton now starting to pick it up. That's Thomas Mazier in the 15 car, qualified so strongly as they go over Repco corner and head up the mountain for the first time. Fabulous sight, only Peter Brock stalling at the starting line.
A magnificent, there is shot of 05, Peter Brock. What a tragedy for the Holden fans. Fortunately, the rest of the field managed to miss him. There's his other car, car 55, Hideki, and Troy Dunstan. As this magnificent sight as the field streams across the mountain for the first time. Peter Brock just getting mobile on pit straight as they come across this sweeping, fast left-hander across the top of the mountain. The crowd going mad. A mix of V8s, turbos, and here we are, the turbo war. Dick Johnson leading the pack through, then the Works Nissan, then Gibbs. Then the first of the HRT Commodores, Larry Perkins, and the first of the Moffat cars. A great mix on this first lap around Mount Panorama. One of the great sights of motorsport anywhere in the world is a full field, fresh off the grid, come pouring down off the top of Mount Panorama, lion astern. All cars, maximum weight, top fuel at the present time. Tyres warmed up. Tail shaft problem with Brock's car, 05, apparently. What a tragedy that is for him. I mean, as if this is not a daunting enough task without getting left on the grid.
The exit to Mazda, Forest Elbow. We see the number 15 car go through on its way down the straight. Thomas Mazier at the wheel of that, beneath the GIO bridge. And here's Johnson, right behind him, Skaife. Mark Gibbs is the next in the Nissan. Then a helter-skelter. Larry Perkins, who lost the kick initially and now trying to fight back. And 05 being pushed down pit straight, has not started with that transmission problem. Rotten luck for Peter Brock. And you cannot, of course, cross-enter. So that means that unless they can get the car running, Brock's race is over. He never actually left the starting line.
Nissan race cam hot on the heels here of Dick Johnson as they come down across the start-finish line for the first time. One lap completed, 160 to go.
Just saw the back of 05 there next to the wall. What a tragedy for the Peter Brock fans there. I'll say half the crowd here are wearing the 05 colours today. That really is a drama for Peter Brock, but here we are inside the Nissan, and this is going to be a real battle of tactics here. Johnson, we're sure, is going to go out and set the pace for the race, but Fred Gibson adamant that he's going to run with whatever pace the field wants to run. And just coming up pit lane, we have possibly a pace car, so there may be some movement in pit lane as well, while they get Peter Brock's car out of the way. So we're only into the second lap of the race. Johnson Skaife, that's on the back of the works. Nissan, Mark Gibbs holding position in third position as they come across the mountain for the second time. This is turbo country. Low ambient temperature, only talking about 10 degrees up here, and these things are really percolating.
Well, we'll certainly be able to generate pictures for you today from Dick Johnson's car, courtesy of Dunlop, and certainly the Mark Skaife Jim Richards Nissan. Unfortunately, we can't do that with the Peter Brock car, the 05 car that is out of commission. There's the gap, first to second. Skaife just sitting in behind Dickie Johnson as we take the rear view of our Dunlop race cam. That's the gap, first back to second. And then a similar gap back to Mark Gibbs, doing a great job there in the GIO Nissan GT-R. Back behind them, it's helter-skelter. There's about 5 or 6 of them debating fourth place. To the dipper, DJ, the pride of Queensland. And right behind him, closing for the kill, is Mark Skaife in the early stages of this Tooheys 1000 for 92.
Yeah, they've made a bit of a break now on Mark Gibbs, and Skaife definitely sitting right on the tail of Johnson, looking for a passing manoeuvre here as they line up on Conrod.
Out of Mazda Forest Elbow again, down Subaru straight. And there's the gap. Johnson's car running beautifully. Always a strong qualifying car in the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship this year. But the team that put the points together was, of course, the Winfield Team Nissan with Mark Skaife, and he is the national champion, not only in the Tourers, but also Gold Star champion for the open wheeler set.
On outright speed, Dick Johnson's Sierra is the only car that can take the battle up to the Nissans at this stage. And this first hour is going to be an absorbing contest. See if Johnson wants to try and break them back. Well, Mark Skaife ducks down the inside, and he will lead the great race as they come across the line for the third time.
So a change in the lead as the Nissan GT-R goes through to leader. Johnson hangs to the outside. He's going to let Mark Skaife set the pace for a while now. The Dunlop race cam shows the gap, first back to second as they work mountain straight.
As we've seen all week, straight line speed, there's nothing in this with these cars, and Dick's got the advantage of the toe. Pulls out of the draft, and this is just sheer horsepower. Aerodynamics working on these cars, 280 kilometres an hour as they head up mountain straight.
Dick's trying to blow him off before they get to the right-hander, but I don't think he'll make it there.
Skaife goes deeper under brakes. These guys will be mindful these cars are running on full tanks of fuel, new tyres, and they've got 6.5 hours of racing to go. And car 9, the O'Brien Brabham car, into the pits early, front wheels coming off. Looks like new tyres, nothing happening with the brakes. I wonder what's going on out there this early in the race.
John Brady?
Yes, Mike, it looks like it's tyres, and that's all. Rudy Eckenberger hopped in to try and have a quick look at the telemetry, but pulled out of it very quickly. And the car back in action.
Hard under brakes, Standard Celtic's chase. Johnson still hanging in second. Good position for Mark Gibbs, Rowan Onslow, and Bob Forbes' GIO GT-R. A watching brief, sitting back in third place.
I notice another one going into the pits very quickly, the Kevin Waldock Ampol Playscape Sierra for an unscheduled stop, and they're also about ready to change tyres. By the look of it, they've got the hood up.
John Hewson there working on the front right wheel, but there's something a little bit more important. I believe there's clutch problems with that car. Bonnet's up, and that's a drama for Kevin Waldock. This car normally bulletproof, certainly has been at Bathurst over the last 2 or 3 years, but having problems very early as we go back to the GIO GT-R. Mark Gibbs at the wheel.
I believe the Synovus Vitamins car that came in, that Charlie O'Brien, the problem was that they'd flat spotted the tyres.
Worth keeping an eye out for his teammate though, Klaus Niedzwitz in the other car. Niedzwitz now up to 4th place, having started from 10th on the grid.
Look behind Larry Perkins. You've got Perkins, who started on the outside of the front row, and Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Falcon V8 has moved up right behind Perkins. Then you have the 2 Holden Racing Team Commodores, Thomas Mazira, then of course the 16 car. Fabulous battle here on Conrod Straight. Look for the power. And it looks like Percy.
When Percy was slated to start on the car.
Well, there are only 4 of the new spec V8 cars in the race. 3 of them basically are on screen right now, and the other one, Peter Brock, unfortunately, still in the pits.
It's a good scrap going on here. Glenn Seaton in the Falcon, dueling with the HRT Commodore Thomas Mazira.
And on the subject of Brock, here's John Brady.
Yes, thanks very much, Gary. Peter, a far from perfect start. You just let the clutch out and crunch.
Yeah, I guess it's breaking a tail shaft. It's a brand new tail shaft put in this morning, which purely cautionary, and I could say 12 years racing Commodores, we've never broken one, so it's a rather interesting situation. I'm just thankful that the drivers coming up behind me there gave me enough berth, because boy, oh boy, I was looking at that mirror for a while, I'll tell you.
Well, Peter, I hope it gets better for the rest of the day for you. At least you'll try and get it back out there.
Yeah, we'll get it back out there. It took a bit of time to convince the officials to push me to pit lane, but we're there.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, John, and to Peter Brock. Colin Bond in the pits.
So is the second B&H car, the 20 car.
Denny Holm car, he's sharing with Paul Morris. We've been watching this fascinating scrap. It involves Larry Perkins, who's running in 5th, of course.
It's an unscheduled stop from car 20, but this battle, Win Percy on the move. Car 16 overtaken car 15 with Thomas Mazzera at the wheel, and the new 93 specification Falcon locked in between them. And just ahead of this bunch, Larry Perkins. So the V8 settling down into some sort of a race pace at the moment, and the turbocharged cars for outright speed certainly with a big advantage up here today.
Over the top of Castrol, magnificent shot there as they come down through the dipper, and that's the order we're following: the 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th.
And I think on the back of the V8 brigade is the second works Nissan of Crompton and Anders Olsen, running at a more conservative pace than number 1, obviously.
That car moving up all the time. They're up to 9th position now.
As they come down the straight, we go to the pits.
And the Colin Bond car in, unscheduled stop, the hood is up. Consulting with Colin, not a lot happening there.
This is a disappointment for Colin. This is a brand new car, built specially for Bathurst.
Johnny Brady's on the spot.
Yes, mate, they've got a bit of trouble here with the engine. They just haven't sussed quite what it is. As you say, brand new car built just for this race. They'd had the shell around for a while. It's only 3 months old, and not good sign already. They're starting to go into the spark plugs there. I don't know if they've got a head gasket problem. These cars used to have trouble. They've got oil pressure problem at the moment.
Mark Gibbs is slowly falling back into the clutches of the V8 brigade. This high-speed 4-car train of Commodores and the lone Falcon.
Quite a traffic jam going behind him there.
And they're taking Anders Olofsson up as well as Perkins with the sniff of a turbo in front of him.
Now I'm fascinated why Gibbs is running his windscreen wiper here. There's certainly no rain at the bottom of the circuit, but we may be getting a few spots of rain up the top.
Larry might be just too busy to turn it
Gibbs
off.
moving right over here. He has had a problem. I suspect there could be a possibility he's got some sort of water leaking from under the bonnet and it's coming up on the screen. I can't imagine why he'd have his wipers going on no one else's. But the other 4 cars have filed through now, including the Crompton Anders Olsen car. Anders in the car, starting the car today. So the Gibbs GIO GT-R seemingly in trouble. Keep an eye on that.
Mark Skaife continues to lead the great race. I'll let him get through the next little section here down to Mazda Forest Elbow. Left-hander coming up. The exit to there. Now Subaru straight. 15 grand in the hand this morning after yesterday's efforts, and you're looking good, Dick Johnson.
Yep, how you doing?
Good, son. How's it feel? Great?
Car's pretty good, Mike. We're just sort of cruising on about the pace we want to go. I would have liked to have tried to put a bit more pressure on the Nissan, but that's one of them things. Obviously, I might give John Keefe or John Large a ring shortly and see if they want to put another 100 kilos on him at the next stop.
Oh, don't do that to them, for goodness sake. The car feels right. You've got to wait to a good start.
Yeah, the car feels fine. You know, it's at this point it's early days, though, Mike. You know that.
It certainly is. I'll let you get back to it. Thanks very much. We'll come back and talk later.
Thanks, pal.
Thanks, mate. Here comes the GIO Nissan GT-R. Just to fill you in, the officials told the crew a while ago they weren't allowed to keep throwing water all over the fence or the wall.
Unfortunately, Mark got caught behind a detonating engine which blew oil all over the front of his car, and they're also doing a front tyre change as well. Hydraulic guns hammering away on the wheel nuts. They've been in there for just on 20 seconds.
They're trying to do it again.
But it is just impossible trying to drive when you're looking through a huge oil slick which is getting progressively more and more smeared all over the screen. Gibbs goes out 30 seconds. This is the great dice. These two very evenly matched. Obviously Klaus has a speed advantage on the straights with the grunt of the turbo Ford, 550 horsepower, as opposed to the probably just over 500 for the 7,500 RPM restricted V8. But Wynn is making up his time through the corners. Sensational handling on that side of the mountain, certainly showing the disadvantage of the Ford Sierra in this tight, twisty parts of the circuit.
Great shots there on our Dunlop race cam. It goes beneath the GIO bridge and works its way down Subaru Straight.
And Percy hard at work in the office of car 16.
Absolutely flat. And look at his approach shot here. Down on the inside. Moment of truth now for Klaus Needsvits. And through he goes.
Third place. A Holden moves into the top 3 of the Tooheys 1000.
Here's the man leading them all, the merry dance in the #1 Winfield Nissan, Mark Skaife. In fact, the Winfield crew now got both their cars in the top 5. Anders Olofsson at the wheel of the #2 car in 5th position, 45 seconds astern of his teammate, but making up miles of ground. John Brady is with team leader Fred Gibson.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Fred, 18 laps in about 18 seconds. It's not a bad run.
No, it's not going too bad, John. The whole thing is exactly what we thought would happen. The pace dropped off very quickly, and we're all doing 17s and 18s now. It looks like raining as well, so I think a lot's going to happen as the day goes on.
Freddie's just so confident about this car. Been totally rebuilt from front to back, both car 1 and 2. He's over-engineered the car, he's telling us yesterday. Everything else, suspension components, everything through the car has gone one size up. So he's over-engineered the car, allowing for the weight. And all these guys at the Nissan team are very confident this car will just rocket around here for 6.5 hours, and I believe so as well.
The word we've had is that there will be heavy rain at the circuit in 1 hour or less, and there's some action in the pits. The boys are getting out the wet weather tyres.
It has started to, well, it's on the way to pouring here on pit straight.
And it's going to be very, very tricky out there as the rain comes in. We'll see what that throws up in the next hour or so of Australia's great race. Klaus Needsvits just getting it a little sideways coming out of the corner, and I think he might be one of the first to head to the pits. He's going to take the punt.
It's getting slippery out there.
The B&H BMW was going to do the same, but that'll give you an indication of how slippery it is.
Klaus.
So that's happening on the way into the pits. We'll keep an eye on what's happening around the racetrack.
You don't want that happening to you on top of the mountain. Klaus comes into the Moffat pit. Got the clocks going on him, a quick stop, get the wets on. And they're also doing some refueling there as well, making it a mandatory stop. Weren't scheduled to come into the pits a bit later than this. Lap 32 was the first scheduled stop. And look at this. This is really raining now. Mount Panorama, the track's starting to get a sheen on it. They'll be able to survive out there on slicks for a few laps, but this is going to start getting very greasy. Ooh.
That's Anders Olofsson just coming up on the inside of Andrew Harris.
Well, I don't know if you believe in fate, but it's falling into Freddie Gibson's lap.
Yeah, that Klaus Needsvits pit stop is 10 laps earlier than was scheduled. If they go in 10 laps early, of course, it means a number of the lead cars coming in to do this sort of stop because of the rain will have to stop again. They'll have to schedule an extra stop.
There's been plenty of drama in the pits. Car 25, Tony Longhurst, went back in again. He's rejoined in 13th position, so all that hard work that Johnny Cicotto's done has been undone. So he heads it back out on the track, and look at the amount of water on the screen of the HRT Commodore. Win Percy driving very gingerly as they come into Caltex Chase. I'm sure Win will be on his way to the pits as well. There's going to be some sensational pit activity in here over the next 2 or 3 laps.
David Parsons in and out, and here's Dick Johnson coming in now to put on to wets. John Bauer stands there.
He's out of the car.
Dick's climbing out, and John Bowers, we take our Bremer Holidays pit report.
Moffat Sierra, meanwhile, has been in the pits for 2 minutes, 20 seconds. They've dropped a lap.
The Peter Jackson Sierra entry, the 35 car with Wayne Park at the wheel, has been in and put wets on and rejoined the race. Car 35 has rejoined the race in 14th position.
So Win Percy stays out there on the slicks, as too does the car 1.
Great day at the office. Sierra, Turbo Sierra at Mount Panorama trying to catch up ground.
Meanwhile, car 20, the second of the B&H BMW, has come into pit lane as Win Percy cuts his way through the spray. This is very, very slippery out there. Car 55, Andrew Madecki car, rejoins in 12th position, out on wets. So they're coming into the pits, one after the other.
Graham Moore heads into the pits, and I think you'll find that Win Percy will be pit bound now.
Percy follows him. I think that may be Kevin Waldock behind them. And the 2 Nissans remain
out there,
out on the track on slick tyres.
And it looks like, as you said, Graham Moore coming in. Wayne Gardner, I can see, is getting ready. I think he's going to take over that car.
Oh, in the wet.
No, you talk about Bathurst rookies. Wayne Gardner's probably got the toughest job he's ever had in a car he's not completely happy with. HRT swings into pit lane. Car 16, Win Percy getting out. Alan Grice getting ready to get in. Meanwhile, Graham Moore has brought the Strathfield Car Radio's Commodore in. And yes, Wayne Gardner is getting in. So Wayne's going to have a crash course.
Wrong one.
Maybe the wrong choice of words there.
Most unfortunate.
Richard Hayes in the pits there, covering that for us, Richard. Probably trying to get out of the way here, because Gricey's ready to roll.
Well, I just had the clock on that, 30 seconds. Good, slick stop. 16 rejoins in 6th position. Meanwhile, Wayne Gardner struggling to get his belts on. Graham Moore giving him some last-minute instructions.
Well, if he thought this was a handful in qualifying in the dry, he's in for the ride of his life now.
I've just been advised that Colin Bond is out there and circulating, but he reports no oil pressure at this stage.
Well, it's not going to be out there long then, Doug.
It's going to cause him some problems. It's finished.
I'd say our race leader, who's allowed that to happen, Mark Skaife, is already undoing the belts, getting ready for Jim Richards. And he is now headed to the pits. What a combo, the 4-wheel drive and the best rain driver in Australia to take over from you, Jimmy Richards.
And of course, the big advantage for the Nissans too, if the pace really backs off, they may be able to get down to 1 pad change as opposed to the 2 they were suspecting to do in the hot conditions. So they'll pick up even more time if that's the case.
Let's go down to John Brady for this Prima Holidays pit report.
Yes, thanks, Mike. A little bit of timing for the Nissans. What they've done is they've tried to hold off onto the slicks as long as possible. It's not that far away from when they would have done a tank change and a driver change anyway. So they've decided to go to the wet weather tyres now. They've already made a big dent on everybody else. And Jimmy Richards, as you say, you couldn't get a better man to be handling the wet. And you couldn't really have a much better stock than this one's looming up for them so far. Just waiting for the churn to go in. The car seems ready as soon as the petrol drops. And when the crew's ahead of the petrol tank, that's as good as you can ask it to do. Coming up to 29 seconds now, and they're about to fly. It's pretty good for a driver change and a full set of tyres. 34 seconds, and off goes Jimmy Richards.
Oh, how hot is the Winfield Team Nissan? The Mobile One Commodore comes in for a pit stop.
And
I don't think Maud's going for a ride.
Graham Brown, Brock's team manager, in there trying to spray the demister with a no fault on the inside of the screen. They're all suffering the same problem. And if you haven't got enough to contend with out there on a big greasy track, if you can't see where you're going, it's almost an impossible task.
Water outside the windscreen and on the inside. Look at that, you can see that. That must be very distracting in these conditions.
When you get that greasy film build up on the inside, you can Andrew screaming at them to get some more of it off. So the rain has turned this race upside down. Andrew Madecki doesn't do a lot of motor racing these days. He's a guy who does do a lot of motorsport. Glenn Seaton having a drink on the bottle.
It's morning tea time.
And this guy just looks so relaxed behind the wheel of a racing car. It's almost beyond belief.
He's carrying our Castrol race cam for us today in the Falcon EB, running 9th on the road at the moment. And he'll hand over to another guy who's used to the wet too, and Alan Jones. He honestly looks like about a 14 or a 15-year-old, doesn't he, Glenn?
Especially with the tube in his mouth, taking liquid refreshments.
Anders Olofsson coming into the pits.
Neil Crompton waiting to get into the car. We've got the stopwatch going on this change.
Down to you, John.
Yes, thanks very much, Mike. As we pointed out earlier, this is roughly when Nissan were going to change anyway. It just couldn't have happened better for them. They've managed to stay out on the slicks. Now they'll go to the wets. That'll make them even more dominant. And all this at a time when they were ready to go anyway. Another driver change. Again, they're just so spot on with this crew. Again, the thing I'm waiting for is the petrol. The driver change will be a spot on. This only running about 24 seconds now, and they'll be off 30 seconds to get the driver in, change the tyres, on schedule anyway. They don't even know it's raining.
No, you're right there, John. 16, Alan Grice, the Holden Racing Team Commodore. Car number 2 rejoining in 3rd place as Gricey comes down pit straight into the left-hander, locking one.
Now there is an indication of just how slippery it is out there. Grice going way offline as he tried to turn into Hell Corner. This is very tricky stuff.
Well, we have all the ingredients of a fascinating race here at Mount Panorama today. Don't know whether the weather will in fact clear. It may. We have fog at the top of the mountain, as Larry Perkins, who's been running in the top 6 all morning, brings his number 11, Bob Jane T-Mart's Commodore, into the pits to hand over.
They're coming in for a full set of wets, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say, Doug, see the aquaplaning, the tyre locking up, as it's even coming at that slow speed into pit straight. Meanwhile, John Bow at the wheel of car 17. If you ever want to drive a handful around Mount Panorama, I reckon this will be the car. Sierras have never been renowned for their instant throttle response.
Like arm wrestling with a gorilla.
Well, info from the Larry Perkins pits. The tyres were absolutely useless when Larry came in for the pit stop. Right down, the right rear was down to the canvas.
Alan Grice, 1 minute 15. He's been in there for a long, long time. And most of the attention seems to be centering on the windscreen.
Now, here's an interesting fact that's just come to hand. Just put the clock on Jim Richards, who's now out there on full wet tyres. He's going around at 2:41.6, which is 8 seconds slower than Skaife was doing on the dry tyres, on the slicks.
It's not bad. Richard Hayer's down in the pits. Richie?
Thanks, Mike. Huge problems for Alan Grice. Something as simple as a windscreen wiper, but he can't obviously see through the screen. It's not working properly, and the wiper is actually sliding off the edge of the screen. The problem is that they can't actually get the spanner down to tighten the thing up behind the bonnet line. And the car's been stuck in the pits now for around about 2 minutes. Also problems on the inside of the screen with misting up.
That's the Denny Holm car, co-driving that with Paul Morris. Now they've got a rescue vehicle out there as well.
And yet the driver's standing there, isn't he? That's
apparently has hit the wall hard there.
Alan
and I would think in the interest of the race, maybe the pace car might even be brought out.
Well, the pace car is just moving up pit lane now. We're going to have the pace car out the track. Alan Grice rejoins in 11th position.
I'm quite surprised. I thought they may have brought the pace car out even earlier today for the Brock car on the edge of the racetrack, but there's not much they can do here.
Well, we're certainly starting to get a bit of wreckage on the side of the track, and with the slippery conditions, there's even greater danger of one of these cars sliding off and hitting the other car. So it's a mandatory safety measure by the organisers here. So the pace car on the track at the moment.
Denny Hulme was at the wheel of this car. I'm certain they didn't do a driver change when they came in before for the tyres. Paul Morris, the scheduled co-driver.
That's shots from our chopper cam, just hovering. Tony Long.
They've got a neck brace on him. I just saw a neck brace on Denny.
I saw that too, Doug. That driver seems to be in some distress.
Pace car still out here at Mount Panorama, Bathurst. The ambulance has arrived on the scene. We believe Denny Holm is unconscious, about to be extricated from that car and taken down to the medical centre. Let's take a look at an incident we have here and see exactly what happened. Most of our cameras all ISO. This looks like Denny Holm coming down. He's got a wheel out on the grass.
He's aquaplaned, you see, in the wet.
He's offline and
he's clouded the wall there, and it's brought him across the racetrack.
Now that doesn't look that dramatic, but you see what's happened is he's flicked his head sideways. You've got that support behind your head, but you haven't got the lateral support, and it's obviously damaged his neck in some way.
And there is Denny pulling the car up. There's the ambulance moving down Conrod Straight to Caltex Chase. We'll then take Denny into the medical centre, as I said here, which is located near the pits. Old pace car heads to the pits, and the great race resumes with Jimmy Richards, car number 1, the Winfield Nissan.
The Rainmaster aboard the car, renowned as a Rainmaster.
And isn't that a bonus? He's at least going to get a few laps without any cars in front of him now, so he's not going to have to worry about any of that. And just look at him take off the four-wheel drive Nissan GT-R.
Bye-bye. He's just spread eagle the field on pit straight. It's pulled 100, 200 metres on them already.
The Dillman Cotter, Impala Kitchen's car going through. It's down a lap. And that will give you some idea of the advantages of a four-wheel drive touring car in the wet.
Look at the rain. Just enormous plumes of spray coming out as we say that. Steve Harrington.
Larry Perkins coming in very slowly.
Steve Harrington at the wheel, limping into pit lane. And this will be one of the most unexpected failures. If this car's having mechanical drama, he's looking for a push. Deary me.
Well, the crew have gone running down pit lane to try and get him up into position. It's Steve Harrington, who took over Larry, done such a fine job early in the race. And the car has quit on them.
There's one thing you see very rarely on a Perkins car, and that's some mechanical failure. He builds them like tanks. And here comes the crew pushing it, and they've got a fairly long push, about 150 metres back to the Perkins pit bay.
Well, that is a real surprise. Perkins so consistent, did so well at Sandown. The car was in the 14s in the top 10 shootout, and now obviously bereft of power. Here we are, another drama.
Really is surprising. Larry was in 5th position. Or
this is the Wayne Park 35 car, the Peter Jackson Sierra.
He's given the wall a severe clout.
He was lucky to get back.
So there'll be all sorts of damage under their brake ducts. You can see the brake duct there damaged, front spoiler, all sorts of stuff. Back at Larry Perkins' pit.
Very busy time, Richard Hay.
Certainly is. They're not absolutely sure what the problem is. I tell you, it's mayhem down here in pit lane. The rain is pouring down. Perkins' car was being pushed up the pit lane while the Wayne Park Sierra was coming in, which has been involved in an incident. They've got the car fired up again now. It looks like it might well be some sort of a fuel pump problem. So they've got the boot up. But it's definitely electrical. I heard Mark earlier on saying it's fairly rare that you get a mechanical problem with a Perkins car. I'm sure that this is electrical.
What a pleasant afternoon, hurtling around here with a turbocharged 4 Sierra and trying to keep the thing on the island.
We've got a spin, I believe, Michael.
Yep, have a look at that on replay. And that, of course,
Kevin Waldock
is Kevin Waldock and the play Skaife, but not play safe.
You won't escape that.
Yeah, that's not bad, actually,
well,
Kevin. Great four-wheel drive advantages.
He's kept the boot into it.
How has he done that? He's absolutely... and
well
got out.
That's a genius effort.
And a wave, too.
Well
and he gets the wave.
The play Skaife Ampol Sierra that John Hewson is masterminding the pit stops.
Bit of off-road ability. Now,
There's JB.
Bow is going very, very slowly on this lap.
All that water, and now a bit of sand. It's like a day at the beach there. Apparently the sand goes harder when it gets wet, Mike, which is why people can escape it in these conditions, whereas normally they'd be there for the rest of the day.
He was very lucky. Good driving there on the part of Kevin Waldock.
John Bow staying out there.
I don't think maybe he has a lot of damage. That looks superficial, but he was given it something underneath.
I think his only problem is trying to drive a Ford Sierra in the rain, and we'll just listen to how gingerly he applies the power in this car. Yeah.
Just listen to the wheels buzzing.
You hear that turbo come on like a bomb. Heaps of wheel spin. Not conditions suited to this high boost turbo forward.
Thanks to Dunlop, our race cam, we can bring you the pictures out of the Dick Johnson car as JB heads up to Repco. You don't fully appreciate the conditions that the drivers are facing here today.
Lights ablaze, punching holes through the gathering gloom as he swings down into Caltech's chase. Johnny Cicotto.
He's had a long stint in that car, really.
He sure has.
Yet another drama in the pits. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Mark, but car 15, the Thomas Mazzera Brad Jones car, has a blown fuse, and it's the wiper fuse.
Oh, dear. Thanks, Dougie.
Amazing.
Could have used the line, it never rains but it pours, but it didn't seem appropriate, did it?
Car 25 still hanging on to 4th position outright.
They were drying the electrics in the Moffat car, hopefully trying to cure a miss that they thought it was that simple. Meantime, Johnny Cicotto of Venezuela. Gee, he's broken that loose. Listen to that rev as it heads up the hill. Tony Longhurst is yet to actually put his backside in the B&H car today.
And look at that.
Now that will give you some idea of the fog on top of Mount Panorama.
As you said earlier, Wilco, a cloud has descended on top of it.
Sure has.
Vision down, minimal levels.
Now, these are appalling conditions to be behind the wheel under any circumstances, let alone in a motor race like this.
Just look at the way Klaus Needsvits is fighting this Sierra. Every time he gets on the power, the back wants to break away. You can see the difficulty for these guys seeing out the back of their car and the front of the car. Look at the damage there on the GIO, quite a severe hit in the door. And if it's difficult to look at it on television, you can imagine it's doubly difficult inside the cockpit of a touring car.
Peter Brock wasn't planning on a pit stop. In the next lap or so, he might have to come in for one in the mobile Commodore, car number 05. I'll show you an incident that happened at Mazda Forest Elbow. Car 18 as well having a problem. That's the Greek Crick, Terry Shield. And they were able to be missed by the second of the Mobile Commodores. We'll show you that as soon as we have the incident. But here's what happened. There's Brocky coming up, and the second Win Percy Alan Grice car, number 16, stopped to avoid contact. How close was that?
I think that Alan Grice should have a word to him. He might be elected to Parliament, but he's not elected the most popular driver on the racing track, I can tell you. There's a train of cars with, I think, Brad Jones in front, Larry Perkins and myself all trying to get past Brad Jones. Grice come along and Tapp coming into the corner, spun me around. And then, to make matters worse, to add insult to injury, he put it in first gear, ground my sport off.
It's been a pretty awful weekend for you so far, and the conditions aren't helping either.
No, but I mean, in those situations, you drive with some grey matter.
Oh, that's the...
We've had a big accident, the Marathon Foods Commodore.
And the other, it's the second Caltex car.
Yeah, Caltex car 7. The pace car is onto the circuit. That's been quite a high-speed shunt between these two cars. Caltex 7 driven by Peter Hopwood and Terry Bosenjack.
Not much of the boot left there. I hope he didn't have his golf clubs in.
Fire marshals dousing the fuel cell at the rear of the car.
Car 7's the car that Colin Bond campaigned this year in the touring car time. Look at the extent
Every
of the damage.
corner of the car has been banged up.
That's been a monster shunt.
The pace car still out on the circuit at the moment. The two vehicles involved in this incident on the approach to Caltex Chase, John English and Ed Lamont. Let's have a look what happens. Here is the Hopwood car coming up. It's going to pull out and has drilled the Commodore right in the rear, and you can see what has happened. He's put himself around, and there goes the Commodore. He's trying to bring it back under control. He'll hit the wall on the right. Oh! And then straight across to the left, and how on earth he has just missed being hit again. That was a very, very spectacular incident.
Number 2, Winfield Nissan comes in. Crompton, Neil Crompton exits the car. Anders Olofsson is going to take over the wheel again.
See, Jimmy Richards came in just a few seconds ago.
And
that moved the number 2 car up to the lead.
And Johnny Chicotto's in as well. Tony Longhurst getting into the car.
So they'll do their full fuel stop, change of driver, the BMW team. And Neil Crompton. Good on Cromley. You can actually tell everyone now he led the great race.
Sure did.
Don't think he won't.
Paul Morris there helping Tony Longhurst get strapped in. What a disappointing day for him, not getting a stint behind the wheel with that unfortunate incident involving Denny Hull.
Sorry, Gary, car 25 was in position 3. This pit stop will drop them back, and Tony's yelling at the crew. He's having these major demisting problems on the front window as well. This is quite a long stop for the B&H crew, and the main problem seems to be this fogging up. And really need everything going for you in these thick, foggy conditions. There's the 18 car. And the problem here is that car 17 is in before them.
Now Longhurst can't get out. He's being held up by the 18 car.
Oh, desperate stuff.
Tony be furious about this.
Well, he's got a lot of time to catch up. Pace car on the way.
He's trying to push it out with his fist. That's how frustrated he is.
Common problem here is keeping the windscreens clean and under-misted. There's been some amazing tricks tried. The Glenn Seton Ford's been using Coca-Cola on the premise that the water might at least stick to the sticky surface and drip, whereas Brocky earlier was using half-cut apples on the inside in the hope he'd get it slippery and the fog wouldn't stick. At least in the shell pit, they've gone for somewhat more conventional means.
Martha Gardner could be giving tips here.
Mate, there are so many home handy tips around here today, it's amazing. If you can give me one to keep me dry, I'll be delighted.
Car 15, also in pit lane.
It's a hell of a way to make a living, isn't it, really? It's atrocious, honestly. In all my years of motor racing, it's the worst conditions I've ever seen.
Pace car goes through our shot there, pursued by car 72, I think it was.
These conditions are becoming absolutely appalling.
Look at that rain now. That's sheeting down. That's torrential rain.
It's a torrent. There's our track cam on the way out of
Look at that.
Repco corner, and that gives you some idea. You might as well stick a camera in the middle of a river. Look at the water there.
The view from up here in race control is it's a little drier, but I tell you, it must be pretty worrying out there, Tim.
Well, it is worrying, but we've just had a weather report from Orange where the weather is coming from. The advice is that this weather passed through half an hour ago and it is lifting. As you can see, actually, when you look out now, it's much lighter. We were going to keep the pace car out until the circuit's what we would call raceable. It'll still be very wet, but of course we've got a lot of streams running across the road, and once that is cleared up, we'll restart the race.
If nothing else, it makes for an interesting day's racing.
It makes for a long day's racing.
Cars under the pace car, we should get away to a start next time around.
Lights are off.
That's definite, yep.
When the lights come off on the pace car, that indicates there's one lap to go behind the pace car, and racing can resume when it pulls into the pit entry. So,
a number of incidents that we have covered here today, none more tragically than the accident involving Denny Hulme, 56 years of age, World Formula One champion in 1967, second at Le Mans, the 24-hour race of 66, US Can-Am sports car champion 68-70, first in the class here at Bathurst in 1990, and it was his 10th Bathurst start. And the sad news is that Denny Holm has passed away in Bathurst Hospital following that incident earlier today down Pitt Straight, where he struck the wall and came off across the circuit into the other side of the wall. His friends and obviously his relatives have been informed. Most of them are here at the circuit. So to all those close friends, those hundreds of thousands of friends of Denny Holm who watched him race in a marvellous career, we pass on our sincere condolences. And the order still, the #1 car, Jimmy Richards, Mark Skaife, Mark in the car at the moment, leading the great race over Anders Olofsson in the second Winfield Nissan, and Tony Longhurst, the 25 Benson and Hedges car, running in third spot. Fourth is John Bowdick Johnson in the 17 Shell Sierra, and the Mark Gibbs car still in there, hanging in there despite all the problems, and they're followed by car number 16, Alan Grice and Win Percy. So we go back to racing.
The battle-scarred Peter Jackson Sierra leads them across the line for the first time as the leaders begin to pick their way through the back markers. The Winfield Nissan's tucked in there. Ooh.
That was a bit of late braking there, but it looked like it was perhaps Manuel Reuter.
Sure was. So, after dozens of laps behind the pace car, we're back to racing in the Tooheys 1000. Let's hope the weather continues to lift. There we are. A bit of low-level cloud, but visibility improving all the time. Mark Skaife at the wheel of the Winfield Nissan GT-R, the car that once again won the Australian Touring Car Championship, second year in succession. Mark Skaife, boy, what a career he's having. 25 years of age, and he's won just about everything there is to win in Australian motorsport. Australian Touring Car Champion, Bathurst winner, Australian Gold Star Champion. Now he's won a category in off-road racing. He's also Australian 2-litre champ. He's got an enormous pedigree developed over a very short period of time. Mark Skaife, hard at work.
In Mazda Forest Elbow, car number 3, the Lansvale Smash Repairs Commodore, driven by Ashby and Reed.
Trevor Ashby was at the wheel.
And they were running 15th, but they've gone straight ahead and not taken the left-hand turn. They've gone out into the grassy area there and banged into the tyre wall.
That's Trevor Ashby. You can see standing above the wall there, helmet in hand. Pace car is on the track as it had to be until they can clear this out of that corner. So this is the 4th time.
We might have a look at the replay now, Gary, and see exactly what happened. Oops, I know what's happening. Straight under the camera, and he's gone straight into the wall. Well, as soon as he got off the blacktop, and I think it locked up, there was nothing there. There he goes, straight into the tyre wall, just at Mazda Forest Elbow. Cars travelling close behind were able to get through, of course, because the car wasn't blocking the track, but it's not really something you want to leave in Mazda corner for the remainder of the race and have someone else run off and do exactly the same thing. The car's still coming down. It'll only be a lap or so under the pace car, I would think. Dickie Johnson. Gee, I tell you what, he is hanging on like you couldn't believe today. It's a day for the old pros, Dick.
You never know, Mike, do you?
Do you never know? do you reckon you could, if you could do a pit stop for a bit of a four-wheel drive adjustment, it would help?
Oh, mate, you wouldn't believe Bowie. This is Bowie's car that he used all year.
Yeah.
And you know, he likes, you know, these little bits and pieces in the car. He's fairly fussy, you know. And he's got pipes coming. There's more donkey's things in here than I've ever seen in my whole life. They're here, they're here, they're here. And all they're doing is filling up with water and blowing water all over the inside of the windscreen. So I need a wiper on the inside as well as the outside.
So how's the car running?
It's fantastic. It really is fantastic. But as I said, what are we? Almost halfway, but gee, we've still got a long way to go.
Yes, there is a long way to go. If it goes full distance, I hope you got a good set of floodlights.
Well, I tell you what, I don't think I've got any floodlights. The lights are covered on the front, so I might have to get a couple of one of those ones with the stick-on doobies on the side here.
Dick, what's it feel like when you're running in these appalling conditions and the turbo cuts in? You must lose all traction at over 200 k's.
I can tell you, Doug, it's like chewing the leg on a chocolate frog. It's about that much fun.
It's not an experience I can relate to, but I'll take your word for it. Dick Johnson.
The great race will continue. We'll be back to green flag racing in just a moment, because the pace car has the light off and it is bringing the field down the straight as the number 10 Moffat car, the Synovus Vitamins entry, is back in the pits.
They were running in 9th position at the time they went to the pits, but they'll want to get a move on with racing about to resume.
You can see how that line's drying out, Gary. It's going to affect the tyre selections. I know that the Shell team are down there with a set of intermediates ready to go. We've had the opera glasses on those, and the boys are going to be working out now with this blue sky imminent whether they want to go and do intermediates and move to slicks, or whether they're going to stay out on these wets to the point where they can do the one tyre change before they run home.
Well, it's a critical decision too.
Certainly is. We've got the light out on the pace car. It, as it pulls off, is car number 1. The leading Nissan leads them up.
Sunshine for the first time today here at Mount Panorama.
You won't believe the bad luck that's befallen Alan Moffat once again. A rear differential has failed, and Alan's been in here for 2 or 3 minutes already. Greg Hansford sitting disconsolately at the wheel. You can see the work going on under the car. These 9-inch differentials were developed in Australia because they were supposed to be bulletproof compared to the original diff setup that the Sierra had. They should be able to run thousands of kilometres without any trouble. But bad luck has befallen Alan Moffat once again. Differential failure on the car 10, and it was running in a very strong 8th position. Another piece of brilliant 7 technology there that we now kind of take for granted. We affectionately call it stick cam. And without getting in anybody's way, this tiny camera at the end of about an 8-10 foot rod, you can just slip it under the car, catch all of the action without inconveniencing the pit crew in this critical work.
Interesting stuff now on top of the mountain. Dickie Johnson at the wheel of the 17 car, and car number 2. Anders Olofsson back in that car. Signalling to the drivers as they come through there on the way to Forest Elbow. Well, we have the traces of a dry line starting.
And traces of competition as a result. It's definitely going to make for more interesting viewing, I'm pleased to say.
It's the battle for second.
Another drama, Mike. Look, oil flags are out. We've got oil on the track somewhere.
We'll have to follow that. Now Johnson trying to stretch the Sierra. He's running second on the road at the moment behind Mark Skaife and Jimmy Richards, and the man sitting behind him is Anders Olofsson in the number 2 Winfield Nissan GT-R. The only man standing between them and a 1-2 for the afternoon is Dickie Johnson at the moment.
And they're gobbling him up there under brakes at the bottom of Conrod.
Well, they will in the wet. Now Olofsson coming straight down on the inside. This is how easy it is. He can run through there. There's not a dry line there. The car doesn't get sideways at all. Johnson closes it up. Now Johnson's getting egged into a bit of a race here, which he really doesn't need. And a straight line, if they could find a bit of straight line here, it'd be interesting to see what Dick can do with the GT-R, but it's like waltzing on ice at the top of the mountain because there's no dry line up there. Look at this, Dick. I don't know if he appreciated that.
Well, Dick would want to be in front going over the top of the mountain because that's where the Nissan has the biggest advantage with the four-wheel drive in these damp conditions.
My information was that they've already rolled the slick tyres out for the next pit stop for the 17 car.
It's a moment with one of the little cars.
We're now at the halfway distance as car 74 takes a little reverse there.
The GIO car was in 5th position, stopped on the side of the road. They've been able to fire it up and they're heading back to the pits.
Blowing a lot of smoke when it pulled up and not blowing any smoke now.
And some damage to the front right as well.
As they had it coming together with a Sierra.
Who was that he came together with? One of the Sierras.
Ken Matthews.
Ken Matthews.
Yeah.
Here we have the replay. Watch this. There's Ken Matthews around. He gets hooked up with the GIO car, and there was the mobile Commodore up on the inside.
Pissed out the window.
Oh, Gibbsy was anything but impressed about that.
There's the tyre drama.
That started off the tyre drama, as Doug said, coming down beneath the GIO bridge. They've got it into the pits now. Should be able to bring you up to date. And Bob Forbes there. Mark Oastler is down. I don't think that one was in the script, Mark.
No, certainly not. Could be running in 6th position. Such a difficult race with a great effort by the GIO crew up till now. But there is, well, there's a lot of oil leaking out of the front of the car. There's obviously been a bit of damage to oil coolers at the front, where they're located at the front of the engine. They're changing tyres, they're throwing off the wets, they're putting on slicks, but quite severe damage to the front of the car. Apparently it tangled with a Sierra. I think I heard you guys mentioning that. Bob Forbes is a very upset man at the moment. He's looking pretty strong here. So a lot of work going on, but I can tell you there are gallons of oil tipping out of the front of this car.
Here comes the number 2 Winfield Nissan, Anders Olofsson of Sweden in the car.
And staying in the car.
Yeah, staying in the vehicle. So Anders has done a great job running support for the number 1 car today. And Dick Johnson coming into the pits now just ahead. He's going to change over to slicks as well.
And they're doing pads, I think, too.
Could be. Yeah. JB ready to step in. And JB is down there to cover JB's pit stop.
Yes, thanks very much, Mike. The brake pads were there just in case they were going to try and hold up to the next stop. It looks like they're going to be able to do that. And otherwise, it's just a straight driver change and tyre change onto the slicks, as was quite rightly pointed out. Topping up with the engine oil. They want to get this one out of the way quickly. The only gamble with, of course, leaving that brake change out is that if the brakes wear down a little hard, it can make the later change a little difficult. But I'm sure they've worked that out. And in 34 seconds, they're off and running with John Bow in the car.
And while all that was going on, Johnny Brady, the number 2 Nissan has rejoined the race. Anders Olofsson still at the wheel, and as a result of that pit stop has overhauled the Shell Sierra, and they've swapped positions.
So 2 rejoins in 2nd, 17 in 3rd. Race leader is still the number 1 car. Peter Jackson Falcon V8. Did a very impressive debut here at Mount Panorama. Basically an untried car. And AJ, our former Formula 1 world champion, concentrating.
In 11th place.
Haven't had the opportunity with Racecam before to watch Alan Jones. Been sensational, of course, in the BMWs. Just like another day at the office.
It's a different look to Seaton, though. You've got to put the wide-angle lens on when you're trying to get pictures of Jonesy. He can't hear me, can he, Mike?
Oh, I just hate to think that he could.
He's a violent man.
Okay, number 1. The leading car coming in for its pit stop. The 2 car has been and gone. This should be a quickie.
Yes, in and out without surrendering the lead, I would imagine.
Freddie Gibson stands at the front of the car.
Mark Skaife staying in it by the looks of things.
And Mark Oastler is there.
Mark Skaife indeed staying in the car. Just had a check of the brake pads. This thing is not using a lot of brake pads. Very impressive performance from the car. But the pits are so tight that we've actually got to move out of the way. They've gone backwards. Now they're going forwards. Very slick stop. They're actually back on the ground in just under 24 seconds. Remarkably quick stop from the Nissan team.
split times on the Caltex scoreboard. Of course, Richards and Skaife continue to lead. 26 seconds the margin now over their teammates, Olofsson and Crompton in the second Winfield Nissan. And 37 seconds the margin over third place getters car 17 Johnson, and about fourth place Longhurst and Chicotto still the Benson and Hedges BMW, and rounding out the top 5 in car number 16 Alan Grice and Win Percy.
Win Percy comes onto Conrod straight, and the sun is out, and that must feel good for a palm. What about it, Win?
Well, it looks pretty good at the moment. The weather's a lottery, obviously, but we seem to have got over the worst of it.
This is a very fast part of the racetrack through here, and the car looks beautifully settled today.
These brakes are just unreal. They're wonderful. That's our strong point, I think.
It must be a delight to have some fine weather. That was atrocious early in the day.
Don't ever let me hear Australians complain about Silverstone weather again. It's never that bad.
That was awful. How strong does this car feel, Win?
Very, very strong. Really, really pleased with it.
It sounds fabulous.
Just a little bit busy then, sorry. Yep, I think the fans are really loving it.
Yes, they certainly are. Win heads off Repco corner. Whew, straight over our camera. He's got the GT-R hauling after him.
It's 1 lap down, actually, at this stage.
It's a little camera hanging out on the back winglet of the Commodore. That's how close he goes to the wall.
What are those cameras worth, Mike?
It sure saves on the cameraman, though.
Yes.
But it is a great view. It's got plenty of muck over it today, but just watch this as they come down to Skyline. I think that's the Wayne Gardner car just up ahead.
Yeah.
Coming down to the dipper.
They're great pictures.
They certainly are. Close there, isn't it?
We were talking before about the problems experienced by the Jones-Seaton Falcon, and Alan Jones is now out of the car, I can tell you, and they're wheeling it away. Mark Oastler is down there, I believe.
Certainly am, Doug. I've got Alan Jones with me now. Alan, very strong run from this brand new car. What eventually stopped it?
Oh, I think it was only a fuel pump going down Conrod. It just misfired when I changed up into a higher gear. So rather than risk another lap, I pulled in while I was close to the entrance, and they've checked it, and it looks like the fuel pump's going on the thing.
Yeah, the 15 car looks like Bradley Jones has got caught up on top of the ripple strip, I think, and he's trying to ask them to give him a hand back, push him off the ripple strip. 15 was in 6th position.
He's hung up there, I think.
Car authority's locked it, so marshals are trying to see what they can do to help. He's just poised up there. That's not the safest spot on the road. There's some torment going on now for Bradley Jones.
Wiped the sweat from his brow, shrug of the shoulders. There's just nothing he can do. Frustration.
Frustration, embarrassment, and just a bit of paranoia. That's not a great place to be stopped, Garry.
They can only deal with the guys who are on the spot there. And they might, yes, they're having some success now to try and get it off the ripple strip.
The gear stick was stuck, can you believe it? I've just had word through.
Look at this. He's going to have to get it all the way around and back in again. Let's have a look at the replay as they come through there. That's the Supra going through, and he gets it around sideways. He's got it all locked up. Tries to bring the tail around. That'll bring the front back over the ripple strip. That doesn't do much for the front air dam, and then he's got it wedged on top of the ripple strip. So that's what happened to young Bradley Jones. So Bradley comes in. Andy Raymond's there.
Yes, and down here at the Holden pit, obviously putting on the new front spoiler after that little incident. Bradley Jones looking quite comfortable, though, in the driver's seat. They're also putting on some new, fresh, slick tyres. The other car, the number 16 car, Win Percy, will also be coming in soon. Looks like they're having a little bit of problem here getting the front spoiler on. Bradley Jones sitting there as they wipe the front windscreen. Quite a lot of dirt, dust, and a little bit of mud still up there from when it was rainy a little time ago, but everything going fairly much to plan down here for the number 15 Holden.
Thanks, Andy. I tell you what, if looks could kill, poor old Brad Jones, he must feel awful at this stage. They were running there strongly. It only takes one little incident. The whole game plan is out. They've at least been able to get the spoiler on, but may have done...
And they're moving it back, further back down the pit road to clear the way for the 16 car to come in.
That's a terrible time for young Brad Jones.
It's obviously something that they can't fix in a minute and a half.
Yeah, he was in 6th position before this debacle, which is going to depress every member of the team, particularly that man. Look at the face.
Well, they're still taking quite a while down there, AJ.
Yes, they certainly are. The thing is, Brad Jones is sitting in the 15 car absolutely disgusted, and to be honest, no one quite knows what has gone wrong with the car. All the panic down here in the Holden pits is the fact that the Win Percy number 16 car is coming in, and it looks like it'll be coming in within the next lap.
David Parsons, number 35, Peter Jackson Sierra. Just a lap or so back there, getting the car a little sideways. Let's have a look at that. Coming through Caltech's chase. A little sideways out on the grass. Spins back, but at least he's staying away from the sand trap, trying to bring the front of it around, drop it down again. No, he couldn't. It's still there. He's got to attack it from the other side now. Get it pointed in the right direction. Wayne Park and David Parsons.
Whoa. And
the whole idea is you just have to keep it going. Get out of there. You've got it back onto the racetrack. Hasn't done any harm. He's up there and percolating along nicely, heading up Mountain Straight. I'll need some panels on that for its next race meeting.
That car's just had a pit stop as well. And car 15 we saw going into the pits, Brad Jones, who had that problem originally with the spoiler and then got stuck in the pit lane. The problem with that car is the tail shaft, which they're having to replace. So a long pit stop in prospect for Brad Jones.
It's not meant to be our year. The car's jumping out of 2nd gear, so I've been using 3rd most places, and you know, we got pretty close behind Tony. I went back to 2nd just by habit and jumped out about halfway around the corner. So you know, and you know, it's just one of those things, I guess, a bit like the tail shaft. When you just, that's what happens.
The 30th anniversary, great race, the Tooheys 1000 from Mount Panorama, and our chopper cam shows you on lap 102 out of 161, 59 remaining, that the entry of Cotter and Dillman, the BMW M3 sponsored by Impala Kitchens, has run its race. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the Impala.
And here's the man at the moment, Mark Skaife, driving the wheels off the Nissan GT-R today. The HRT Commodore sitting in behind him.
But a lap down.
I tell you, he is not sparing the rod, young Skaife.
No, he's having to earn his money today, isn't he?
Doing a good job on this. I guess the big question has been, what will Freddie Gibson's team do, given that the turbo era ends on the 31st of December of this year?
He's only got 2 ways to jump.
And I believe it will probably be in favour of the General. Great Nissan race cam. Give you an idea of Mark. We pan it around as he comes over the top of the mountain, heading down towards Skyline. Just ahead of him, I think, is the Larry Perkins V8 Commodore. And we take the floor cam version that shows you just, looks very relaxing. There's always the trademark of a very professional and polished race car driver. It does make it look very, very easy.
Scheduled stop driver change in some respects, but the real reason is they've been having trouble with the alternator, and that is still giving them a bit of curry. just topping up the oil and changing the tyres as well, but the alternator and the battery problem has been ongoing. Mind you, it's not something they're paying a lot of attention to at the moment, so maybe it was just the odd connection there, because it's not something that's put a lot of time in during this stop. It's mainly been change of tyre and driver. Larry Perkins now coming out. Interestingly, the car's had a bit of a shunt up the front while it's been out there as well. So, and now more trouble. I think Steve Harrington just pointing to the crew. Seems to have some sort of problem, but he hasn't cut the engine, so you would think they would be going shortly. But this has been a fairly lengthy stop for what was really hoped to be just the changing of one connection. Trouble's the back left-hand wheel. It's now done. They're off. But that's cost them a bit of time, and they haven't really had a lot of time to play around with all the mistakes they've had.
Rejoining the race in 12th position is the Perkins-Harrington Commodore, Bob Jane sponsored entry. And we go back to race leader Mark Skaife. Young man in a hurry, and he's in such a hurry he's achieved almost everything at the age of 25. The Australian Touring Car Championship, defending champion here in the Tooheys 1000 at Mount Panorama. That was after having finished second in the Touring Car Championship of 1991. He's also the Australian Drivers' Champion, and originally from the central coast of New South Wales, but now firmly ensconced in Melbourne, headquarters of the Winfield Nissan team.
We've got some of the telemetry from Johnson's car in the hands of Johnny Bowe at the moment. There you are. You can see what the car's actually doing. This is the way they monitor the health of these vehicles as they race back in the pits.
Yeah, very often the guys in the in pit lane actually find out there's something wrong with the car before the driver does, before he gets a chance to look at the gauges, and you can see the turbo boost pressure there in the middle going up and down as Johnny Bowe presses on the throttle and then backs off either for a slower car in front of him or one of the tighter corners.
So we've got a tacho at the top, Richard.
Yep.
And then we've got barometric pressure, how much pressure we've got in there.
Yeah.
And we've got speedo there that reads out below that in numerals.
And then you can see what gear he's in at the bottom there. Just drops down to second as he makes his way down through the dipper. Past some of the slower cars. Now,
so these days, for the contemporary touring car driver with this sort of technology available, Big Brother is always watching. You can't say that you didn't over-rev it. You can't say that you weren't hammering the brakes.
Certainly is. The telemetry readout from Klaus Needsvit's run in the top 10 yesterday showed how his foot had slipped off the throttle twice, and the boost and the revs just died.
You can't come back and fib to the team boss anymore.
Temperatures there, so the water temperature at the top, and the oil temperature and the oil pressure down below.
And indeed, if we're getting any charge from the alternator, that car looks pretty healthy. It's looked healthy all day, it's sounded healthy all day, and it's doing the Shell team proud.
Larry Perkins could perhaps have done with having a look at one of those when the battery died on his car earlier on.
First the battery, and then the alternator, and I think they've actually been in twice to look at the alternator. It's cost Larry Perkins a great deal of time.
Number 2, Nissan, with Anders Olofsson at the wheel, coming in.
Now this will be a driver change. Crompton will get in here.
Mark Oastler's there.
Absolutely. Wilco, Neil Crompton getting in, Anders Olofsson out of the car. These guys are going to affect a front brake pad change. Due to those pace laps early in the race, when it was nice and cool, they have reduced their brake pad wear quite substantially. So as you can see, doing a quick brake pad change. Freddie Gibson said he could affect this change in about 40 seconds front to back, so they're only looking up the front, so that'll be even shorter still. I've just been timing the gap between the 17 car and the car 2 is about 35 seconds. So that'll drop Crompton back and, of course, move the 25 car up into 3rd position. It's going to be a sting tactical battle from here.
Well, the set of pads going into that rear wheel there took a little bit longer than the rest of the car, so the stop taking longer than Freddie Gibson would like, I'm sure. But wheel on, air jack hammers the nut tight. And back into the race goes Neil Crompton, now at the wheel of car number 2.
Dick Johnson getting ready. The Shell boys obviously are going to be coming in shortly. He's getting geared up for what will be the final driver change for this car.
Mark Skaife into the pits, Jimmy Richards into the car. But while that was happening, that has enabled John Bowen, the number 17 car, to go through and take over the lead in the race, but he has yet to pit. And there's the man that has to take over for the run to the checkered flag, and that's Dick Johnson. As we go to Jimmy Richards. There's apparently a problem there with the fire extinguisher inside the car. It's gone off, as you can see across to the right. It's covered one of the lens with foam.
Just up to the top right hand of the picture, you can see the foam all over the race cam.
I wonder, Jim wouldn't appreciate if we asked to come in and just clean the lens for us, would he?
That's the shot.
That's the shot. That's why we can't generate race cam out, because the fire extinguisher's gone off inside the car. Actually, it's spitting.
We lost a bit of foam there. Let's have a look at it. Don't let it put you off, Jim.
So that's the situation as Jimmy Richards goes through.
Dick Johnson jumping into the number 17 Shell Sierra, the new race leader. They are changing tyres. They're going to have a look at the brake pads. They're not quite sure if they're going to change it. Team manager Ross Stone, I only spoke to seconds ago, said they are going to have a look at them. This is their last chance. They do have the lead and they don't want to give it up. I say that as the Nissan of Jim Richards goes straight past the start-finish line. It doesn't look like they're going to change the pads from here. Just as I say that too, they do. This windscreen getting a bit of a clean. Johnson's ready to go. A face of stone. John Bowen gets out dripping wet, but a very happy man. And everything seems to be going to plan. The back wheels are fine. We're just waiting on the two front wheels as they simultaneously put the pads on now. It will only be a matter of seconds here in the Shell pit.
This stop is actually taking a lot longer, I think, than the team would wish. 40 seconds. Just over 40 seconds was what the Nissan managed to do it in. He still rejoins in second position though.
Mark Skaife just come in, the car's gone back into the lead, looking a very strong performance from the Nissans here today.
Well, it's been a fantastic performance. You know, obviously the weather's helped us a little bit, but the car's fantastic. That's as hard as you can drive the car just then. And obviously the car's going very, very well.
A few spots of rain now falling here in pit lane, and we have a report from Orange. Hailstorms.
Well, we've had everything else.
Well, I don't know. We might get the race in, hopefully, before the hail arrives.
Rain, hail, sleet and dark of night. It's a pity that the post office doesn't have an entry in the 30th anniversary race. They'd be a sure thing.
Scott and Jason Bargwana on screen, and they are leading the 1600cc class in the Mercantile Mutual Corolla. 21st outright as well, which is a tremendous performance. There's been a three-way battle in this category all day between the Bargwana cousins, Peter Verheyen and Jeffrey Full in car 74, and the early leaders in the class, Rick and Neil Bates. They still fill the top three placings. And as I said, 21st outright for Scott and Jason Bargwana, and the other two not far astern of them as well.
Copper pilots have told us that there's more hail in Orange, and that hail is moving this way.
Car 55 in 7th position. We just saw it rejoin the race with Andrew Medicki at the wheel. Car 35, the Peter Jackson Sierra entry. The badly banged up Peter Jackson Sierra entry. Wayne Park in 8th position as they rejoin the race. David Parsons, yes, it is David Parsons at the wheel now.
Alan Grice into the pit, steps out of the 16 car, and Wyn Percy about ready to step in, and Andy's down there.
Well, actually, it's John, mate.
Okay, John.
Yes, great driver change and tyre change. Interesting that they would do it now. The weather closing in, you would have thought they may have tried to hold out a few extra laps and see if the rain started to come. But perhaps they just pushed it to the point where they needed to make the change anyway. Whatever it is, it's only a short stop for them, 24 seconds, so they'll be pretty happy with that.
You can see the storm moving in, and I would say it's not too many minutes away now. Nissan race cam, Jim Richards, Winfield Nissan #1, the race leader by about a minute. They'll be coming in for a stop shortly.
To the danger now, they'll probably service the #2 car, Neil Crompton.
And use it as an experimental vehicle.
could do, put Anders Olofsson in the car, who's probably a lot more experienced with wet weather racing, or they may leave Neil in the car. We'll wait and see that.
We'll soon find out. Mark Oastler is on the spot.
Thanks very much, Garry. Wilkinson. Yes, Neil Crompton comes in. He's not getting out of the car. And the Nissan crew have been all sorts of consternation discussing with the Yokohama tyre engineers exactly what tyre to put on this car. It's just started to rain quite heavily in pit lane, and they're putting on full wet weather tyres for the run to the finish. 143 laps, but of course, if the weather changes and it gets dry, Crompton's going to be back in again. This will be a fascinating finish to the Tooheys 1000. Freddie Gibson holding on to him. I've got the clock on 25 seconds. The car off the air jacks. Crompton mobile in 28 seconds. Very slick stop from the Nissan crew.
Yeah, fabulous stop. Now, anything that Dick Johnson had going for him, making inroads on Jimmy Richards, has now disappeared. With the arrival of the rain, they're all out there on slicks. There's going to be a mad charge through the pits here. There's no point staying out there. It's going to hang around this bad weather.
There it is.
There's Mark Gibbs going through in the GIO car. The idea now is to just ease it out and bring them on down into the pits. No heroic stuffs on Subaru Straight. You can see the guys have backed them all off, and here comes the charge into the pits. 55, Andrew Madecki is in. He's ready for a full set of wets.
Car 28, Kevin Waldock in the pits, same thing. Here comes Dick Johnson.
It's going to be
it's a procession. There'll be nobody left on the racetracks.
You won't be able to hear for whistle blowing.
I know the roughest ride up there must be our helicopter cameraman and our pilots tracking race cam and bringing the pictures. It is filthy outside. Here's Johnson in. Keep in mind, Dick said he's got the headlights covered up with shell decals. Looks like a regulation stop down here, just a set of wets coming on.
Andy Raymond is there.
Yes, a full set of wets going on. John Bauer's actually going to jump into the car. He's not doing that. The team very concerned about time. Team manager Ross Stone is really giving the boys a lot of hurry up here. As I said, the full wets are on as the Perth Gracie car goes out, and Johnson is just about ready. Now he's going down from the hoist, and Dickie Johnson's back in action.
The Gibbs Onslow car goes as well. There's going to be a mad charge out of pit lane. Pace car, I think, is going to come out as well. Make sure that cars don't stay out there, because you can see what's happened up there. The
76 it is. One of the Corolla, the 1600cc cars, Calvin Gardner, Jeff Forshaw, Mike Conway. I couldn't quite see which of them was in the car, but he's out, he's okay. We can see that much.
Well, he's just okay.
Oh,
no, Jimmy Richards has hit the wall.
Well, Richo, of course, stuck on slicks and no traction at all, even for a four-wheel drive Nissan.
Well, here's Crompton's chance to be the ultimate hero.
That car is not going anywhere else but the pits this afternoon. The rain is now hitting the commentary booth so hard, you can hear it.
I would expect we might see a red flag. I can see them stopping this race.
Yeah.
Yes.
They must stop the race.
This is it. This will be the end. The red flag will be out before we finish our next sentence, I would say.
Well, now, if that happens, what they usually do is backdate the race by a lap or so, which could well see Jimmy Richards and Mark Skaife still taking victory.
Listen to the crowd. The top of the hill. This is the kind of send-off, and I don't want to...
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I don't want to be unkind to Winfield and the Nissan team, but the punters at the top of the hill, this is the kind of send-off they wanted to see for the Nissans.
Well, the Nissan's got in. Jim went in gingerly, but he was trying to wipe off speed Fred Gibson.
If they don't stop the race, there won't be any cars left to complete it anyway.
Oh, it stopped. I mean, you know, I mean, officially maybe not, but this is it. This is the end of it. There's no doubt about that. 144 laps gone, and we will not see 145. I mean, I can't believe that we will. Red flag is out.
Oh no! Just get out of that. Marshall will get hit if he doesn't get over the fence.
Red flag is out. The race is over in more ways than one for a lot of these competitors. Well, what in particular for Fred Gibson, Jim Richards, Mark Skaife, what a dreadful end to what had been a brilliant campaign for them here at Mount Panorama in the last hurrah for these Nissan GT-Rs.
I tell you what, the Nissans have hardly had any paint scratched on them since they've been racing.
The Daily Planet car involved in that, and 2 of the 1600cc Corollas. The Bates car is one of them, car 70. I can't see the number on the other. Car 39. 71, is it?
Car 71.
Yeah, so it was the class leader.
And the Bates car was second in the class.
Yeah.
So that's first and second in the class, both into the wall, along with the overall race leader.
The indications are, as Richard Hay pointed out a moment ago, Richards and Skaife, if they've called the race, which they have, may still be declared the winners. They will still be declared the winners. That's as we understand it at this stage. The red flag, as you can see, is out. The race is not just stopped, the race is over.
And Mark Skaife explaining exactly what happened, what he saw on the screen. So the in the Winfield Nissan pits, they're investigating and trying to count back the laps. We'll wait on the clock.
Oh, the marshal's just fallen over in the wet. Not only are the cars losing traction, so are the marshals. He just went AO for D down the grass verge.
Dick Johnson, relatively unscathed. Arm raised. Now, I don't know whether his arm is raised in what he thinks might be victory, but the indications that we've been given is that the #1 Nissan will still be declared the race winner.
There's the carnage coming out of Forest Elbow. John Brady with Ivan Stibbard hopefully will clear the air.
Yes, thank you very much, Mike. Ivan, red flag, it is all over, Red Rover?
All over, yes, unfortunately, but as you can see now, the weather's clearing up, but it's too late, it's all over, so we've declared it, and the timekeepers are now working out the final result.
Not afraid that you may have jumped a little early?
No, not if you saw what was happening there with some of those cars. It was a bit dangerous, and unfortunately, some of them don't heed the caution flags, and you only need 1 or 2 to do that, and that's what caused that problem.
OK, the $64 question, who is the winner?
I would say car 1. The race has got to be declared at the last full lap before the red flag went out, and he was still leading at that stage.
How close was he to the next full lap at the time?
Not sure until we get to the timekeepers on that, but he had a full lap up on him on the other cars, so that should be okay.
I just came around the corner and had no grip whatsoever, going about 2 miles an hour, and hit the bank just out of the cutting. So I just put it in low gear and just went very, very slowly around the track. At about 1 mile an hour, come out of the Forest Elbow, and the car just, as if it accelerated without me putting my foot on the accelerator, and it just went out of control down where the other cars were and hit them. And then the little Corolla did the same thing behind me.
You're obviously okay. The conditions out there, I guess they were worse than they were this morning because there's probably a lot more oil down.
Well, the conditions was wet and we were on slick tyres. That's what the problem was.
Well, Ivan Stibbard has just awarded the race to the #1 car. You must be pleased with that, even after the crash.
Fantastic. I can't believe it.
Well done, Jimmy Richards. And the crew celebrating here, Mark Skaife and Jim Richards. They've done it again. Very difficult circumstances. They ground away. Expert pit work kept the car on the island except for the last lap, but they were leading when the race was called. And here's our winners, Mark Skaife and Jimmy Richards.
Of course, the arrival of that storm produced quite a number of incidents. We'll have a look at some of them for you, just recap what happened, just in case you've arrived home. Jimmy Richards and Mark Skaife were leading this race. This is what happened on the exit to Forest Elbow. Brian Callahan, Barry Graham, the 39 car, spinning. Then triggered off is the Toyota Corolla.
That's Bates and Bates, I think, in the Daily Planet car.
And that, of course, Andrew Harris with the brakes on. Driver very quickly out of that. That was young Brian Callahan. Oh, here's the 76 car that hit the wall, got into with a wash. Now, he was quite okay. That is quite a connection with the concrete wall.
It is. It's a testimony to the way the car is built, actually, that you see the driver get out of it without a problem.
Boy, and as you can see, climbing out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, his leg against the roll bar.
Very, very lucky boy indeed. And, of course, heading up to the top of the mountain, the flags were out. I believe this was Neil Crompton as the Johnson car came across the front of it.
No, that's the Jim Richards car.
It was the Jim Richards car.
So it was between there and here that the damage was done. He's actually done it over the top at Skyline somewhere.
So here he comes down through the dipper, riding it all the way down through here, just limping back to the pits, wondering what on earth Fred Gibson would be thinking about all that. Marshall's probably just couldn't believe it as he aquaplanes down through here on the way to Forest Elbow.
not realising, of course, that the red flag had been displayed earlier and that his first position was assured.
He comes out of the corner. As I pointed out earlier, there's a kink to the left here, so Jim probably just goes to guide the car just a little to the left there. The back of the car now breaks away. And Jim is chasing it. There's not a thing he can do. He's full on the brakes, tail into the wall, brings the front around, and he's on his way into the back of Andrew Harris's car. So exit Jimmy Richards.
And now the class leader.
The Toyota Corolla goes in there, and the rest of the field able to get by there on the inside. Here's another angle of the Toyota. Look at the marshals jumping back over the fence here. And he joins the party down there as well.
The winners of the great race for the second year running, Mark Skaife and Jim Richards. Well, it's a slightly hostile reception. A slightly hostile reception, Mark, but you always knew that you were going to get that to some degree. But regardless, forgetting all of that, it was a triumph out there today because they were the most adverse conditions that you could possibly have experienced.
Well, it was, but like we led the race all day. I can't believe this, you know, like the Nissan Winfield, we won the race. That's how it is.
Jim?
I'm just really stunned for words. I can't believe the reception. I thought Australian race fans had a lot more to go than this. This is bloody disgraceful. I'll keep racing, but I tell you what, this is going to remain with me for a long time. You're a pack of arseholes.
Okay, let's have a look now at the Caltex race score. These are the placings as of the Australian Racing Drivers Club. Jim Richards and Mark Skaife, the winners in the Winfield Nissan GT-R. On the same lap, Dick Johnson and John Bowe placed second in the Shell Sierra. On the same lap in third place, Neil Crompton and Anders Olofsson. Down one lap in fourth place, 25, Tony Longhurst, Johnny Cicotto in the Benson and Hedges BMW. On the same lap in fifth, 16, Win Percy, Alan Grice, the Holden Racing Team Commodore.
Yes, an unbelievable storm that ultimately led to one of the most controversial finishes in the long history of Australia's greatest motor race. 1992 also signified the 30th anniversary of the event at Mount Panorama. Hope you can join me again next week as we relive more highlights from what is arguably the greatest stretch of road in world motorsport.